Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well, 206-926-1522. Thanks. Announcements. So first of all, I am going to be having a launch and learn about tweens and sexuality in September for my book, Sex Talks with Tweens. You can get that puppy in all the different places. If you get it from Amazon, would you please write a review because that'll pump it up in their land of sending it around the world. I know we have feelings about Amazon, but if you want to help kids and help me help kids, then I need you to do that. So thank you. The other thing is that if you haven't noticed, I answer questions on this show. If you have a question and you'd like to have a private consultation with me, they're called quickies. So if you pop onto my website, birdsandbeesandkids.com, or look in the show notes, you can figure out how to sign up for that. Oh, and speaking about signing up for things, if you want to get a direct announcement about when I have my launch and learn, get it? It's like a lunch and learn. Sign up for my newsletter. So birdsandbeesandkids.com, and then the freebies up in the corner there on the right-hand side. There we go. Okay, get ready for a really, really kick-ass story from a dad about masturbation. That's going to be the last one, and then you'll see the other two. Okay, thanks. And there I was thinking I didn't have something I wanted to rant about. I do. So here we go. Birth control. Birth control. We have to talk to our kids about birth control because I don't know why abortions are not going to be able to be happening in a whole lot of places. Birth control is one way to reduce unplanned pregnancy, right? You are probably thinking, well, how the hell do I talk to my 4-year-old about birth control? It's easy. You say, when you're talking about baby making, you say, most of the time people do this because it feels good to their grown-up bodies and they don't want to have babies. So there are things they can do. They can put something over the penis to catch the semen. The woman can take pills. There's all kinds of stuff to do to prevent pregnancy, prevent an unplanned pregnancy. There, boom, done. Everybody, every time you talk about P and V, talk about birth control. Make it really clear that when you say sex, you say birth control. When you say sex, you say condom, especially if there's a penis on the scene. And just heads up, I may have said this before. As you know, vasectomies and condoms are the only penis haver birth controls. So please, if you have a penis haver, make sure they know about both of these things, especially condoms. And I think I said this recently, a little lube in the end, a little spermicide in the end of the condom. It's magical. It's super duper effective, and it makes the condom feel better. Oh, also, people with penises should be encouraged to masturbate with condoms because then they'll know how it feels. And they can, that bullshit about it doesn't feel as good. They'll know what it feels like. It'll be normal to them. Anyway, birth control. Talk about it. Insist on it. Make sure they know the different kinds. Even if you have a queer kid and they say they're not going to have P and V sex, lots of people say that and then end up having P and V sex, hopefully voluntarily. So talk about it with everybody. Make sure your kid front and center, if they're going to be having penis and vagina sex, they know about birth control. This is one of the things we can do to help our kids while we are in this terrible, terrible fucking time. Oh, by the way, the other thing we can do to help our kids while we're doing in this terrible fucking time is vote. Please register to vote. Please register people to vote. Reclaim Our Vote is in the show notes. Please, 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 please vote. It's all we have. It's all we have. We have other things, but it's the biggest thing we can do to get those shitheads out, 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 out. All right, birth control. Did I say birth control? I did. Okay, bye.
Hi, Amy. calling with a question about my two girls, aged 4 and 7. I find often during times when, like, we're getting ready in the morning or getting ready for bed or they're having a bath together, they like touching each other. So she'll say to her sister, hey, kiss my bum. And then she'll do it and they giggle, or she'll be like, or the other one will say like, hey, squirt water, pour water on my vagina in the bath or something. And I try to say to them, hey, you can keep your hands to yourself and touch yourself, but, don't touch your sister. And they say to me, but we like it and we both want to. So can you please help me handle this? And I love your show. Thanks so much for all the work you do.
Your daughters, they have discovered that it feels tickly and good and fun to fool around with each other's private parts. And they're goofy and they're silly. And yeah, it's not safe for them to be playing games with each other's privates. The times that they're doing it make perfect sense, right? Bedtime, bath time, getting ready, people are naked, the parts are accessible. And the problem is, like you said, they're all down for it. They're consenting. I put that in air quotes because maybe I've said this before. I don't like to use the word consent with little kids because it's too big of a word. It's like a high level concept. So I say they're agreeing to do this, and their question about why isn't it okay if we agree to do this and everybody's happy. This is a hard one because they're right. They should be able to do that. Two things. We live in, I'm assuming, in puritanical land. And so if we lived in the Netherlands, we'd have a different kind of conversation about this. They're much more open about this. They understand that what the girls are doing is typical in terms of their healthy sexual development. They have boundaries as well, but the whole vibe and deal with it is different. So here's what I would suggest you do with the girls. First of all, this needs to stop because, I'll get to what you're going to say to them in a second. This needs to stop because they are they're learning that if somebody wants to play privates games, they're into it because of their siblings, so they're going to say yes. Now, if an older kid wants to do something like this, or another kid who's been sexualized or something's happening with them wants to play games with privates, then they're going to be wide open to do that because they're already having fun with their sibling. So there's a safety risk. The next thing, and that goes both ways, because one of your kiddos could want to play that game with their good friend or another friend, and potential shitstorm because people don't understand about sexual behavior and sexual development in children. And so they're going to think abuse is happening. Generally speaking, that's not what's happening. Anyway, so they're at risk both ways, to be preyed upon and potentially, air quotes, to prey on someone else. So that's the first thing. And the second thing and the third thing. It's also, they're old enough to know, the 7-year-old is old enough to know that it is just not okay or safe to play games with privates. And so the 4-year-old is less going to understand that less. So one thing you can do when you talk with the 7-year-old separately from her sister is you can say, you know what, you're old enough to know that it's not okay or safe to play games with privates, and it's your job to help your sister know those kinds of rules. So you need to stop doing this because somebody who might be mean might want to play that way with her and she could get hurt. Same for you. So you hear those words, might be mean, might want to play that way, break rules. Did I say that? I don't know what I said. Might break rules, that kind of thing. So making her, putting her in that kind of position of power in a way with her sister. She knows more, she's more responsible. I think that can help with this kind of conversation. Like I said, I would talk with them separately. I would start with her. And the other thing that you can say to her, and one of the things that happens for us is you're like, again, right? Just please stop. I've already told you it's not okay to play this way. And, please stop. I've told you to stop. Why won't you stop? And we get a little intense about this kind of thing. And so our kids ping off that and they don't believe us, frankly. So this is why you need to talk to them separately. You need to be calm. You need to be in a chill spot. Do it while you're doing something else. If she's alone in the car with you, I always feel like a broken record with that, but y'all know the rules. And then just say, hey, I want to talk to you about the games you've been playing with your sister, kissing each other's butts, putting water on each other's privates, and name specifically the things they're doing. And just say, you know what? You're old enough now to know that it is really not okay to play games with privates. Kids can get hurt when that happens. Your sister doesn't know that it's not okay to do that. And we want to make sure that she's safe. she's going to trot out, we're agreeing to do this, because you've already talked about consent and agreeing, right? So then you're going to say, yeah, I get that, but the problem is that this can lead to other behaviors. It could mean that your sister maybe plays that way with another kid and she doesn't know that that's not okay. It could mean that you might forget the rules and somebody might want to play that kind of game with you who's older. And so that's just the way it is. I know, Amy's very favorite parenting phrase. And then see what she has to say. And the bottom line is you need to be really clear. The other thing is if they can't stop, then you need to say, hey, you know what? And, this is, if you can't stop, then you can't take baths together. You're going to need to get dressed separately because you're having trouble remembering the rules. So you're going to give her a consequence, which is a logical one, right? It's a logical one. So I'm saying this and I'm thinking, oh my God, don't shame her. You're the 7-year-old, you should know. You don't want her to feel like she's broken rules or she's in trouble or anything like that. So you want to frame this as you know what? This is something that big sisters do for their little sisters. And because, you're older and you get it. So be very careful that she isn't walking away with thinking that this is all on her. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, okay, 4-year-old. Basically the same conversation, just again, alone, really clear, calm, firm, and just say, the games need to stop. It's not safe. It's not okay. Talk to your sister. You both know the rules. If you can't knock it off, then consequence. And you might have to remind them. One thing you can do is come up with a word that they both know, like peach. They'll think that's fun. They won't get that. Eggplant, just kidding. Pickle, sorry. Okay, come up with a word, and it's kind of like a safe word. So if they are starting to play that way, you just say peach, and they're like, right, that's the cue to remember to knock it off. And again, if they give them a couple tries, if you have to peach at them if you get to a third peach, then I would institute the, sorry kiddos, you can't take baths together because you can't remember you're not following the rules. All right, that's that. A couple of good books. C is for consent. There's a book called I Can Play It Safe that's really great. And then there's a book called Consent for Kids that's actually a little more mature than this age group, but I would get it and you can read parts of it with them, but read it yourself. It's got great language. It's a really, really good one. And remember that this is all consent and agreement is about all body touch, right? It's agreeing to give hugs. It's saying yes to hugs. It's saying yes to high fives. It's saying yes to kisses. Especially at this age, it's not just the private's business. So you want to do the whole package because when they are getting interested in doing sexual stuff, that's when you start talking about consent and sexual consent. So for now, I would talk about agreement. You can say consent, but again, I feel like consent is kind of am I a broken record? Whatever. Y'all don't care. I feel like the word consent is kind of like the word inappropriate. Kids don't quite get what it means. And if you ask a kid, what does inappropriate mean? They're going to say not okay. So quit saying inappropriate, say consent and agreement, and then go from there. So yeah, thanks for your call. This is something that folks are oftentimes struggling with, so appreciate it.
Hi, Amy. And this is about my own child who is 4, close to 5, and he identifies as a boy. He has a penis, and he, in the past few months, has been holding his penis a lot, both at school, at his preschool, and at home. And we've talked with him a little bit about it, just in a curious tone of, is it itchy, uncomfortable? Is there something medically happening? And it doesn't seem that anything is medically happening. From listening to your other podcasts and responses to questions, I'm guessing that it's just kind of a habit. It's there. It's something to hold on to and something to touch. I'm not that uncomfortable with it. The teachers at school, I know they're not shaming him, but they have definitely noticed and brought it up with myself and my son's father. Just wondering if you could share more of your thoughts on that, how to manage that with him. I don't want to shame him. At the same time, I know it's not socially, acceptable or appropriate to be touching one's middle parts or private parts in public places. And I have talked about that with him. I do that regularly, like, oh, you're welcome to do that in your bed or in the bathroom, but at school and when we're with other people, that's just not something we do.
A lot of what I said in the answer to the last one kind of comes up for this one. So yeah, thanks for asking. And this is really common for people with penises to hang on to them for dear life. With a 4-year-old and the fact that he's doing it at home and at school, and the fact that school has talked to you, tells me that he is probably experiencing some kind of anxiety. It feels good to touch his penis. It's self-soothing. It calms him down. I think you've done a really good job of like prodding and trying to figure out like what is happening here. Is it itchy? Does it hurt? What's going on down there? And those are really legit questions to ask him. A couple of ideas. First of all, I realize that you're probably out of school now, so this might not be relevant, but I'll just give you some thoughts and some other thoughts. Sometimes it's easier or things change more quickly with the adults that are not his parents, and this behavior clearly needs to change. And so what I would do is have a meeting with the school and talk about what's the plan for him to help him remember. It's not, we can't say socially appropriate, but it's not socially appropriate to touch his penis in public. So have a conversation. What kind of language are y'all going to use? What are some of the strategies you're going to use? And have them start it first, because kids tend to be more responsive to the people that are not their parents, as you may have noticed. That's why kids are great at school and then little shits at home. Anyway, other reasons. But so using language like, hey, don't forget, it's not okay to touch your penis in public. Let's get our hands in the air, wiggle, 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 and pull the hands and flop them around. If it's in a group setting, same kind of thing. Everybody, hands in the air. So he's not being targeted or its attention's not being drawn to him. Having one adult who is kind of on him in a loving, kind, gentle way to help him remember is another thing they could do. And that means like a really calm, quiet, hey, don't forget, and pointing at his crotch. The other thing you could do is have a secret signal, like okay sign, and that reminds him to take his hand out of his pants. And then the last thing that I would do there, and you can do all these things at home too, is he might appreciate a piece of rabbit fur or something really soft, a koosh ball that he has in his pocket, that he can play with that, and it gives him that same tactile, soothing thing. Bunch of strategies and bunch of lingo I just gave you. At home, your job is to be, as I just said to somebody else, really, really calm and kind and chill when you talk to him about this. And what I would say is a lot of the other things with a 4-year-old, it's hard because they don't have great retention because they're not, 14. And some of the similar things that you would say that the school would do. And then at home, it's a little bit harder. Like they tend to be not as quick or not as willing to change their behavior. You might just pick times of the day where you are more intense about it than at other times. Oftentimes with kids who are self-soothing this way, you can predict. So it's going to happen at bedtime. It's going to happen at circle time. It's going to happen when he's flaked out watching TV, right? So you can watch those times. So what I would do is I would actually focus on the intermittent times. So he's up, he's having breakfast, his hands down the pants, and I would say, hey, buddy, hands out of your pants. Thanks. If you want to do that, feel free to go in your bedroom or the bathroom and redirect. And he might forget. And you can like, oh my God, bud, same thing. Remember the rule and help him remember. I'm just remembering one time I had a mom tell me that her kid was doing this. And every time he touched his tallywhacker, she said, oh, you touched your penis. Time to go wash your hands. And after about, 5 hand washings, he stopped. You could try that. Don't necessarily recommend. Anyway, so there are some ideas, but I just want to come back to the first thing I said. My guess is that he is having some anxiety and he probably needs a little help with this because he's doing it at home and at school. So I'm a super fan of play therapy. So wherever you live, if you can Google her up, play therapist for kids, it's a really lovely way for them to process stuff. It's something that's part of their normal life. So I would look into that. And then finally, you do need to ask him if anyone has touched his privates or his penis. Older kid, friend, super cash, want to do the porn check-in. Have you seen any videos of naked people? Super cash. And, you can also say, have you ever played any games with privates with anybody? And see what he says. Again, my guess is, and I'm guessing, I am not a psychologist. I am a podcaster and a advice giver. My guess is that it's something related to anxiety. All right. Thanks for your call. I'm thanking everybody today. I don't normally do that. So thanks. And our last call of the day. Oh my God, this daddy, he wins so many awards. He could not have done this better. It's a masturbation talk, and I thank you, whoever you are, for calling it in. You get to hear your lovely voice, your lucky, lucky kid. I just love this. So I'm just going to leave this with y'all. This is how you do this. Feel free to take notes. And, not every kid is going to be as curious and matter of fact as this kiddo, but really, really good words. The only thing that I would add when he talks about what an orgasm is, he says some good words, but really the best description of an orgasm and something that kids can really relate to is it's like a really good sneeze. The lovely book, Where Did I Come From by Peter Mayle. He said that. All right. Enjoy. And gold stars. There you go. Daddy-o.
I have kind of an interesting story. So my 12-year-old son had health class, and after school, I asked, "You have any questions?" And he goes, "Yeah. So I don't really understand how this ejaculation thing works." Apparently, they didn't really explain it extremely well. So he said, "How would I? Is it something that I'm able to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I would think probably." And he goes, "How do I find out?" And I say, "Well, you'd have to do something known as masturbation." And he says, "What's that?" And I say, "Well, it means you would have to essentially put your hand around your penis and stroke it and rub it, essentially." And he goes, "That sounds kind of icky." And I say, "Well, right now you say that, but in a couple of years you probably find it's kind of nice." And I said, "It's actually designed to feel pretty good." Then he says, "Well, what does it feel like?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of warm. It'll feel tingly, if you will. And eventually, after quite a few minutes of simulating rubbing and stroking, you'll have something known as an orgasm." And I said, it'll feel like you're kind of about to pee, but it'll feel kind of warm inside. You'll be kind of relaxed. It'll feel like a lot of pumping, pushing, kind of fluttering, throbbing, and then as it's basically a bunch of muscle contractions, and the semen will release from your penis, and it'll feel kind of sticky and messy at the same time, and it'll all kind of land around your lower belly area. And he says, "So, like, how much fluid is it?" And I said, "Well, it's a teaspoon or two. It's not a lot." And he goes, "Well, maybe I want to try it after all." So I come up to his room and gave him, a little bit of, squirted some lube into his hand, and I said, "Yeah, let me know how you like it." So after about 10-15 minutes, he comes out of his room and he goes, "Well, I did it, Dad." And I said, "Oh, congratulations." I think they should have probably explained it a little bit better to him in school. A lot of kids probably ended up, wondering how it works. But, yeah, that's kind of my story.
That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522, so please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.